Hey guys, it's Brant within my head channel, and I'm back for another video today. How's everybody doing? This video, it's solo album season, solo album time. Of course, if you're a Kiss fan for any type of or any span of time, you know that September the 18th marks when the band made history and done something that no band has ever done and released 4 solo albums on the same day in a huge coordinated marketing scheme, whatever you want to call it, marketing campaign. You know, Kiss, the band, the brand. I mean, look behind me. And, you know, we all love it. We all, you know, whether you collect a lot of Kiss or not, we all love it. And so today we're going to be talking about the solo albums. And I know I've covered the solo albums a lot, but can you ever really cover the solo albums enough? I don't think so. So in today's episode, the solo albums. Raise your glasses.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Boise, Idaho. Don't touch anything!
September 1978, following Kiss's huge climb that they continued to have after the release of Alive and the release of Destroyer, which shot them even more into the stratosphere. Beth, the band's biggest single to date, although I would have to say it's probably not their most well-known single to date. Me and my wife just got finished watching The Fall Guy. We didn't go see it in theaters. We were watching it downstairs before I came up to record. And it's got I Was Made for Loving You in it. And it's the song and the melody and versions of the song is all throughout that movie. And I was talking to my wife about how the I Was Made for Loving You, although it's far from the best Kiss song, is probably one of the most commercially known Kiss songs. And even in that, I appreciate it. But that would come off of Dynasty. That's going to come on the heels of the solo albums in '79. Another big marketing campaign for the band, Super Kiss and the return of Kiss. But the solo albums came after the huge success of Alive, Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun, Alive 2, and Kiss was just a juggernaut musically and show-wise and merchandise-wise. A lot of this stuff you see behind me came out during that time. And so Kiss decided to put out solo albums. And solo albums actually contractually acted as fulfillments to their contract. And, you know, a live album acted as a fulfillment. The solo albums acted as a fulfillment to their contract. And it gave the band a little bit of time to get a break from each other. You know, Peter and Ace were running off the rails at this time, and Gene and Paul. And I think everybody could use a break from each other. And they said that they come up with the idea to do the solo albums while they were on the set of the Phantom, which is next month. It's Phantom month, October. And so they said, oh, we're going to do solo albums. But they had actually started on the solo albums before that. And I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds on that because that's not what this video is about. If you go back and you look at my playlist, you'll find where I have reviewed every single one of these albums pretty comprehensively. I've done track versus track on these albums. We've done the panel has spoken on these albums where you guys helped rank the songs on the albums. Basically what I'm going to do in this, we even done a track versus track versus track versus track with Carla. And Carla is coming back. I was just speaking with her just before I started videoing. She's going to come back and do a what can we do to fix a Love Gun video with me. So that will be coming up in the future. And speaking of future videos, I want to take a little side step here to talk about I am getting involved in a project with Rick from It's All For You Demon and Tommy from Heels and Quads Media. And we're doing a little project called Critical Kiss.
Fans of Kiss Unite, we're ready to ignite. Critical Kiss, tearing up the screen. With the legends of rock, we're living the dream. Hard-hitting heads, banging never obscene. Critical Kiss, rock and roll supreme.
Then where we're spinning up some pages like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, even spinning up a merch shop for it. I'm going to have some cool merch that we've got coming down the pipe. But Critical Kiss is, and I don't want to speak for the other guys, but the vision that I see Critical Kiss is we're going to talk about things in history, Kiss albums that are critical. And critical can be good or bad. And so, but it's going to be things that we consider critical. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link to the YouTube page in the description of this video, and you can check that out. But the first video will be on the first album. We figured we'd start at the beginning, and that is going to be coming later in the month. This will be in the month of September. So let's get into what I was going to talk about. Let's talk about the solo albums. And so basically what today's video is I'm going to talk about each one of these albums and my thoughts on the albums. These are thoughts you've probably heard before, but I just wanted to do something. I have to do something special for the solo albums because they're so near and dear to my heart. They're part of my fabric as a Kiss fan. And I love this era. This is my favorite era of the band, from the Love Gun era to the Dynasty era, and all the merchandising and stuff that happened during that time that I had when I was a kid, and even have some of it now. Not everything. Don't have everything, but I just want to talk about these albums individually and talk about my likes, my dislikes, and just go through the albums and just make a little short video here for you guys. First off, I always start with Gene. And this time of year, I start listening to the solo albums. When I hit the 1st of September, I will start listening to the solo albums. And I'm weird. I listen to them in a very specific manner. So the manner that I listen to them is the manner that I'm going to talk about them. I always listen to them in a round. I will listen to one album, then the next, and the next, and the next, and then I'll start over. So the first album I usually listen to is Gene's album. And I don't listen to Gene's album to get it out of the way. I listen to Gene's album to start is because, to me, Gene's album is a very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not boisterous, even though it is that. It's very introspective to me. I mean, yeah, it has songs that are cheese and fluff, like, songs like Living in Sin at the Holiday Inn and things like that, songs like that. But just looking at this track listing, I'm taking my album out of the sleeve here. Looking at this track listing, you have Radioactive, starts the album off, and we all know how it starts off with the sinister laughter and the singing in Latin and the orchestra, and then building into crescendo that is Radioactive. Radioactive, the song itself, is actually very short. If you cut off all of that beginning, it's actually very short, and it basically goes through a couple little short choruses or verses, And then it goes into Gene and his chorus just singing Radioactive over and over and over and over and over. But Radioactive is a good song. I think it's the perfect song to start this album. And then the second song, Burning Up with Fever. People generally like Radioactive. Burning Up with Fever, people are sometimes split the fence on. I think Burning Up with Fever is kind of cool. It's not one of the better songs on the album, in my opinion. But I do how it has like a funky, it's got that funky 70s vibe to it. It gets a little long in the end of the song with the chorus repeating over and over and over. But a lot of Gene's songs have a tendency to do that on this album because, I don't know, they were maybe spruced up demos. Gene wasn't putting too much into it other than just trying to put every person on the face of the planet on his album. I mean, look at the back. Look at all the credits on the back of his album. I mean, everybody played on this thing. But Burning Up with Fever is okay. I don't hate it. See You Tonight. See You Tonight is one of those songs I love. It's very short, very sweet, to the point. He repeats himself quite a bit in it. It's not a very long song. It's not a very overproduced song. I love See You Tonight. See You Tonight is one of those songs where we get to see the inner part of the demon. It's one of the songs that a lot of people initially, they didn't like. This isn't the album that Demon fans wanted Gene to make in the 70s. And a lot of people still don't like this album. But the people that do like this album, they love this album. So See You Tonight is one of my favorite songs on the album. It's probably my favorite song on the first side. I actually like the second side of Gene's album better than the first. But the next song is Tunnel of Love. Tunnel of Love is cool. It's kind of funky. It kind of, Burning Up with Fever has that same vibe as Burning Up with Fever. Kind of a funky song with a lot of background singers, a lot of female background singers. True Confessions. I think True Confessions is great. It's probably one of my more favorite songs on the first side. But it just gets into that True Confession, sweet, sweet, and then just keeps going over and over and over. That wears on me a little bit, but I like the vibe of the song. So when we flip the vinyl, go to the B side, my more favorite side of the album, we start with Living in Sin at the Holiday Inn. And I always loved Living in Sin, even though it's got that jinky part with Cher on it. And, ooh, Gene Simmons, ooh, you know. I could have not had that, but I mean, he's got to put his girlfriend at the time on the album. Always Near You, Nowhere to Hide. One of my favorite songs on the album. Like I said, I like the Gene songs on this album that a lot of people do not like. Always Near You, and then it goes into that opus of Nowhere to Hide at the end with the big choir again. And then you have Man of a Thousand Faces, probably one of my favorite songs on the album. If this would have been an album that they had not had to conform with all the other albums, Gene was going to name this album Man of a Thousand Faces, and then they decided, no, we're just going to call them the Kiss albums, or they're just going to, and they're all going to look the same. That's the marketing ploy that they took. Mr. Make Believe is probably my favorite song on this album. Sometimes in life, I feel like very much Mr. Make Believe, and I can get behind what Gene's saying. I can pick up what Gene's laying down for sure. I mean, the very first line, this time I'll try to get it right. And sometimes I start every one of my days off thinking that. This time, I'll try to get it right. So, Mr. Make Believe is hands down my favorite song on this album. Very much not a Demon song, but I love Mr. Make Believe. See in Your Dreams is the next to last track, and I know that this is very unpopular opinion, but I actually like See in Your Dreams here better than the Rock and Roll Over version. I'm a big fan of the Rock and Roll Over version. I just like the See You in Your Dreams version off of his solo album. I like that better. And then When You Wish Upon a Star. I mean, who can't say what they've not said in a bad way or a good way about When You Wish Upon a Star. To me, honestly, I could take or leave When You Wish Upon a Star being on the album. Some people would say that's sacrilegious. Some people would say it'd be a better album without it. Some people say it would have sucked even with When You Wish Upon a Star taken off of it. But this was Gene's solo album, and that was his dream. He lived his dream. His dreams did come true. He's richer than all of us, probably combined. So that's the Demon solo album, Gene Simmons solo album. Now, and I still have yet to make my How Do We Fix Gene's solo album. And when I have my Let's Fix the solo albums or Let's Fix Kiss albums, I like to bring in a second producer. If I was the producer and I'm going to fix this album. And Gene's is one that I still have yet to do. And I plan on doing this one with somebody someday. Now, the next solo album I usually listen to is Peter's. And I have fixed Peter's album. Me and John B. Good, a longtime viewer of the channel, we have a video where we fixed Peter's solo album. And I think we made some pretty good choices. This, hands down, is my favorite cover. I used to just sit and stare at Peter's makeup and the intricacy of his makeup and where you see his cross and everything down here and how you can see all the individual hairs. And you can even see like the brush strokes in his makeup and around his nose. I love they're all good. Erado Karagudi knocked it out of the park with all of these portraits. But at this time that this came out, I was a huge Peter fan. And reason why I picked up drums and started playing this man right here. And I even got the chance to tell him that when I met him. And I'm sure he's heard that thousands of times, if not hundreds of thousands of times, by a lot of drummers. As much as Ace has probably heard people say he's the reason why they played guitar. Peter's solo album, though. Peter, once again, took a route that a lot of people really didn't want him to take. They wanted an album of Black Diamonds, Baby Driver. And that's not really what Peter delivered. What Peter delivered is, being the older member of the band, where Gene had a lot of Beatles influence, and you definitely heard it on his songs. This man right here had a lot of R&B influence, jazz influence. So even though he was a rockin' drummer and could play, and I do think that he does not get enough credit, he is one of the 4 members that made Kiss who they are. And a lot of people like to really get down on Peter and Ace because of the things that they struggled with and the things, but Gene struggled too. Gene struggled with the egomaniacism of being a superstar, and Paul struggled with his own devices. They may not have, they did affect the band, but not in as direct a way as maybe Ace and Peter did. But Peter even played through having broke hands from an accident, and put out what I feel like is a good solo album, even though it's not necessarily one that people would have liked for him to put out. He starts off with track 1, I'm Gonna Love You. I love that song. It's one of my favorite songs on the album. I love I'm Gonna Love You. I think it's a great song. And then he goes into You Matter to Me. I would like You Matter to Me without the little wee-doo, 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 wee, little synthesizer. Not so much a fan of that, but I think it's a good song. It's not what I would have released as a single, but that's what they released as a single. And I've actually talked about this in my video. The song when I reworked this video or reworked the album or whatever, the song that I would have released would have been the cover. I would have released Tossin' and Turnin', because Tossin' and Turnin' has a little bit of a rock feel to it. It's a familiar song, and why not release a cover as a single? They did it with other songs, so why not release a cover as a single? Because I love Tossin' and Turnin', even the little doot 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 doot. I love those too. Don't You Let Me Down, like Gene, I love the songs on Peter's album where Peter is not doing the typical what people wanted Peter to do. Don't You Let Me Down is one of the best songs on this album, in my opinion. And then you get to That's the Kind of Sugar Papa Likes, and I don't not like the song, but it's not one of my favorites. And I won't say that I have not skipped it every once in a while, but I probably have. And then you flip the vinyl and you get to Easy Thing. Easy Thing, I think, is great. One of the better songs on the album. Might be one of my favorite songs. I'm not so cool on the background singers coming in at the very end. I think they could have just done without the background singers. Rock Me Baby is kind of like, that's the kind of sugar Papa likes to me. I don't really vibe with Rock Me Baby. I know some people like it. If you do, that's cool. Kiss the Girl Goodbye, I think is awesome. It's like Easy Thing to me. I love Peter doing that. We've been apart so many times before. When he goes into that falsetto. For a man who can't sing, I think people say he can't sing. I think he sings great. I like Kiss the Girl Goodbye. Hooked on Rock and Roll, I think is great. Vaccinated with a vitriol needle. The old needles that they played on the old record players, the wind-up record players. Yeah, he's vaccinated with that needle because he's hooked on rock and roll. And then everybody's favorite Peter song, I Can't Stop the Rain. To me, it's one of the classics of all the solo albums. And I'm pulling Gene back up here for a second. It's one of the classics of all the solo albums. Probably one of my favorite of all the solo albums. All right. I know I'm blocking my face here. Bad YouTuber. All right. So we're halfway through. Then the next one I listened to is Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley's masterpiece. And I have fixed Paul Stanley's album. Me and Tommy fixed Paul Stanley's album. Tommy from Heels and Quads. He's wanting to come back and fix Ace's album. So we'll eventually get around to doing that. And I think John B. Good wants to come back and fix Gene's album. And I think we've been talking about that for about a year now. But Paul's album, I think Paul's album is great. It's probably it goes back and forward being my first or second favorite solo album. Tonight You Belong to Me, the opener, is magnificent. It's amazing. I love it. Move On is, I can take it or leave it. There's female background singers. I know all bands did it. All of the guys in the bands, Gene did it definitely. Peter did it. Even Ace did it. And Paul did it. They all wanted to have the female background singers. And a lot of 70s bands did have female background singers. Like one of my favorite artists I listened to from the 70s, Jackson Browne, used female background singers. Ain't Quite Right I think is great. It is very stripped down, kind of a not like Paul song, not like Kiss song, but I think that I think it's great. Wouldn't You Like to Know Me is a Kiss song. Wouldn't You Like to Know Me could have been on Rock and Roll Over, could have been on Dynasty. It would have had that rock feel rather than the disco feel. If it would have been on there, it would have been one of those songs on Dynasty that is a rock song. Everybody says Dynasty's like a disco album. There's a couple disco songs, and then there's rock songs. Wouldn't You Like to Know Me on Dynasty would have been one of the rocking songs. It'd been good right after 2000 Man. 2000 Man, 2000. And then dink, 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 coming right in. Then Take Me Away, Together as One. My favorite song on this album, and probably my favorite song out of all the solo albums. Take Me Away, Together as One. I know that's bold to say, but Take Me Away, Together as One is probably my favorite song off all the solo albums. I think it's awesome. It's All Right is another Kiss song. Could have been on Rock and Roll Over. Could have been on Love Gun. It's All Right is a Kiss song. Paul made the most Kiss-like album, in my opinion. And then Hold Me, Touch Me, Think of Me When We're Apart. it's grown on me over the years, but I still say my favorite part of the song is the end when it gets to the solo. Paul plays that amazing solo at the end of it. But the beginning of it is just a little bit too much AM cheese to me, and to some people love that. You know who I'm thinking about. You're in my head. And I'm talking about Rick. But I know Rick loves this song, and it's the AM goody goodness that he loves, and that's awesome because it's there for him. Love in Chains is, to me, Paul's album kind of starts to kind of slide towards the end. Love in Chains is a rock song. It kind of sounds like a Kiss song. It's got that could have been on Dynasty. Had a little bit of funky rhythm to it. And I'm washing Paul's face out with the light, and then Goodbye. Goodbye. I remember when I was a kid, Goodbye traumatized me because it said goodbye. It's only for now, but I'm coming back. I was like, oh, they breaking up? Is Kiss breaking up? So I thought, oh man, but it's a cool song, man. It's got a lot of really cool drum fills in it, and it's a good song. So real solid album from Paul. But not without its kinks and its armor. And then I think that I saved the best for last, but I always listen to Ace last. It's almost like the dessert at the end of a meal. And so what can't be said about Ace's album? I am going to do like I said, I am going to do can we improve Ace's album? And there is room for improvement on this. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I've yet to do it. But you ever look inside your albums just to see if some previous Kiss fan has written inside of it or left anything in there? I know that's a total squirrel thought, but I just always, or you smell them? Do you ever smell your albums? See if what they smell like? I know that's weird, but I do it. Rip It Out. Probably the best opener of the solo albums. Rip It Out is amazing. The drums on it amazing. Anton Fig and Ace. It's just amazing. The most stripped down personnel on this album. Eddie Kramer producing. Ace playing most of the guitars. Playing bass on a lot of songs. Anton Fig on 9 of the 10 tracks or however many. 8 of the 9 tracks because there's only 4 on the second side because Fractured Mirror is so long. But yeah, Anton Fig on it and some background singers here and there, but like I'm speeding back to my baby and stuff like that. But quite the solo effort when it comes. And Paul was kind of the same. Paul played a lot on his album too. Gene didn't even play bass on his album. He played acoustic guitar and guitars, which is what he wanted to do. So that's one thing I love about the solo albums is they celebrate the band making the albums that they want to make. That's why I don't get down on any of them because I always say they made the albums that they wanted to make. So Ace, Snowblind, great song. I love Snowblind. Ozone. Ozone is probably one of my favorite songs on this album. I love Ozone. What's on Your Mind is a good song. It's one of those songs where I feel like Ace's lyrics are just a little thin. New York Groove, believe it or not, I'm not the biggest fan of. I love hearing it, like when you hear it in a commercial or when you hear it in a movie or see it on a television show. It opened an episode of The Blacklist. If you ever watched The Blacklist, it's at the very beginning when Red's in a car chase. And I love hearing it being represented that way. But to hear it on this album, to me, it's, even though it was the biggest hit of all these albums, all these solo albums, but not my favorite. I'm in Need of Love. I love I'm in Need of Love. I love the solo on I'm in Need of Love where they go into that double time. Love it. Wiped Out. Wiped Out is great. I love Wiped Out as a drummer, and you know you'd love to play Wiped Out. And then Fractured Mirror. Fractured Mirror, I'm not the biggest fan of what do you call it? I was going to say musicals, instrumentals. I'm not the biggest fan of instrumentals, but I like Fractured Mirror. I liked Fractured Mirror or whatever it is, whatever he called it on his newest album. I actually thought that was really good. I just thought it was a little too short. So, Kiss Army, raise your glasses to one more year celebrating the release of the solo album, September 18th. If you don't listen to the solo albums at all, you at least need to listen to them the week of September. I've listened to them the month of September and into October. You know, it's solo album and Phantom season for me. And so definitely give them a listen. All of them, all the way through. I know some of you guys are popping in my head like AJ. AJ telling me the story about how he broke one of his albums. I can't remember if it was Peter or if it was Gene. I think it might have been Peter. Just broke it because he was so pissed off about it. And so there's what I want you to do. I love the interaction I've been getting from you guys since I've been making videos again. And so down in the comments, talk about the solo albums. Let's celebrate the solo albums, September 18th, the release of the solo albums. They made history. Nobody's done it since. And nobody had done it before. And there are 4 great albums in their own right. I'm not even stacking them up. I've usually said it before. And I did say these two kind of go back and forth between my first and second. But I'm not going to sit and I'm not going to rank them today. I didn't even rank the songs. I just said whether I liked them or not, what I liked about them, what I didn't. Because that's what celebrating is about. It's appreciating what we have, what we got. And I'm glad we got them. Some people say that they might not have been the best decision. And they might not have been the best decision. But I'm glad that we got them. And there's a lot of things that Kiss and Kiss fans consider might not have been the band's best decision, but I'm glad that we got them because we got a lot of content from a band that we don't have anymore. You know, we're coming up on the, maybe a month, 2 or 3 months away from the final date that happened last year in December. So, like I said, I will raise my glass to the solo albums and raise my glass to Kiss. That's all for this one. Like I said, be sure to go back and look at my back catalog. If you want more solo album in your life, go back and look where I ranked the solo albums with my son Steven. And then I did The Panel Has Spoken with the solo albums with Rick. And then we did track versus track with Carla. And then we have worked on fixing a couple of them with Tommy and so far with John B. Good. So go back in my back catalog and look those up. And be on the lookout for my newest project with Rick and Tommy called Critical Kiss. That's all for this one. I will hopefully see you next week and I'll find something else to talk about. Maybe I'll pull some stuff out of my collection. I was reading some of my comments and people are talking about I'd really like to see more of your collection. So maybe I'll do a video next week of looking at the collection. I don't know. We'll see when next week gets here. That's all I've got for this one. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.